reported that at least 61 individuals were arrested during the protest, the majority in Nairobi. The commission raised alarm over multiple reports of unregistered unrest where suspects were not formally booked in police stations, raising fears of arbitrary detention and due process violations. Right, moving on, 2 people have been confirmed dead and at least 8 others injured in Matu town, Machakos County, following violent clashes between demonstrators and police during national protest marking 1 year since last year's anti-government demonstrations. The protest, organized by to commemorate the victims and highlight persistent economic hardships, saw renewed tensions erupt across the country. The demonstrators had taken to the streets to remember the over 60 people who were reportedly killed by security officers during last year's protest and to continue demanding accountability and reforms. In Matu, the protest turned tragic when police reportedly opened fires on protesters. According to Dr. Macau from a local hospital, 6 people were admitted with gunshot wounds and 3 others were with various injuries. Sadly, one of the critical injured succumbed to while undergoing treatment. Another patient remains in critical condition, while the rest are said to be in stable condition. In Nairobi, running battles were witnessed between protesters and police officers, with the latter using tear gas and rubber bullets in efforts to disperse crowds. Similar scenes of unrest were reported in several other towns and counties across the country. Human rights groups have condemned the use of excessive force by security agencies and have called for independent investigations into the incidents. The protests, although largely peaceful in many areas, were marred by pockets of violence and aggressive crowd control tactics by law enforcement. Right, still in matters of protest, Kenya has witnessed a fresh wave of national protest as thousands of demonstrators, many from the Gen Z demographic, took to the streets to mark 1 year since the historic June 25th, 2024 anti-finance bill demonstrations. The protest, which erupted across multiple towns and cities, were aimed at demanding justice for victims of police brutality, calling for governance reforms and asserting their constitutional right to peaceful assembly. In major urban centers, youth-led demonstrators flooded the streets with chants, placards and songs, voicing deep frustration with what they described as systematic failure by the government to respond to citizens' concerns. Protesters called for an end to extrajudicial killings and more transparency in public governance, echoing the same issues that sparked the nationwide outrage a year ago. Business operations and public transportation was severely disrupted in several areas as protesters lit bonfires and barricaded roads, causing traffic gridlocks and tensions among residents. In Nairobi, chaos unfolded near Parliament and State House roads as protesters clashed with heavy armed riot police. Tear gas canisters filled the air as security forces attempted to block marchers from accessing high security zones. In Githurai, along the busy Thika Road demonstrators brought traffic to a standstill for hours. Armed with flags and signs, they chanted slogans calling for justice and accountability, demanding that the voices of young Kenyans not be silenced. Right, moving on, anniversary demonstrations held in Kikuyu town on June 25th to mark 1 year since the 2024 anti-finance bill protest took a violent turn, resulting in a torching of key public infrastructure. Enraged protesters reportedly set fire to the Kikuyu law courts and several sub-county offices, escalating what had initially been a peaceful commemoration into widespread chaos. Dramatic video footage shared widely on social media showed thick smoke billowing from the engulfed buildings. Alongside the court complex, several machines, including tractors and tuk-tuks, parked within the premises were also reduced to ashes. The crowd further stormed other government offices, vandalizing property by smashing windows and destroying vital documents and office furniture. Police officers at the scene were seen struggling to contain the inferno, resulting to makeshift efforts like using buckets of water and sand. The attempts, however, were largely overwhelmed by the intensity of the blaze and the scale of the destruction. Right, moving on, a wave of concern has gripped Kenya's media and civil society sectors after the Communications Authority of Kenya, that is CAK, ordered all television and radio stations to immediately suspend live broadcast of the ongoing June 25th, 2025 anti-government protest. The directive came amid escalating tensions across the country as Gen Z-led demonstrations marked 1 year since the controversial 2024 finance bill protest. In a formal notice dated June 25th and circulated to all media houses, CAK cited violations of the Constitution, referencing Article 33 and Article 34, as well as Section 461 of Kenya Information and Communication Act of 1998. As justification for the directive, the authority argued that continued live coverage of the protest posed risks to national security and public order. Despite the directive, several media houses defied the order and continued to broadcast the event live, prompting swift punitive action from the authority. Reports indicate that CAK, accompanied by police officers, raided key broadcast installation in Limuru that serve NTV. The teams allegedly shut down free-to-air FTA transmission equipment, effectively blacking out broadcasts from these stations in several parts of the country. Kenya Television Network, that is KTN, was also reportedly taken off, as well as K24 TV. Right, at the same time, the Law Society of Kenya has obtained conservatory court orders suspending the directive by the Communications Authority of Kenya to halt live broadcast of the June 25th anti-government protest. The legal victory came amid growing national and international concern over the suppression of press freedom during the Gen Z-led demonstrations marking 1 year since 2024 finance bill protest. In a strongly worded statement, the LSK demanded that the Communications Authority immediately restore all broadcast signals that were previously shut down. The authorities' action has resulted in media blackouts on several major television stations, including NTV, KTN, and K24, following the continued coverage of the ongoing protest despite the directive. LSK further warned that failure to comply with the court order would result in legal consequences for the leadership of the CA. Now, the CA has earlier cited, or rather had earlier cited, constitutional violations and national security concerns as the basis for its directive, referencing Articles 33 and 34 and Section 461 of the Kenya Information and Communications Act. However, the LSK countered that the move was unconstitutional and mounted to an assault on press freedom and the public rights on information. Right, moving on, opposition figures, Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka and DAP-K Party leader Eugene Wamalwa have strongly condemned the Communications Authority of Kenya, that is the CAK directive, to block live broadcast of the June 25th protest, which marked 1 year since the 2024 anti-finance bill demonstrations. Speaking to the journalists during a press briefing, the leaders argued that the freedom of the media is constitutionally protected and cannot be arbitrarily curtailed. Kalonzo Musyoka cited Article 35 of the Kenyan Constitution, which guarantees every citizen the right to access information. He questioned whether the government is attempting to hide alleged human rights violations against protesters, emphasizing that transparency is vital in a democratic society. On its part, Gino Malwa interpreted the CAK order as a sign of government's intent to deploy security forces against demonstrators. He referred to recent events in Nairobi where authorities clashed with alleged troublemakers, resulting in disruptions of otherwise peaceful protests.
Also are very concerned about the disturbing reports of intimidation from the Ruto regime of the media. Free media is the cornerstone of our democracy. If you threaten the media, switch off media houses covering the live happenings of events across the country, what are you trying to conceal? What are you trying to hide from the Kenyans and from the rest of the world? We smell a very nefarious scheme that this system, under cover of darkness, want to do what they do best, to harm Kenyans, kill, butcher, arrest, abduct. That is the evil that happens under the cover of darkness. So we will be standing by the media and the Law Society of Kenya in challenging these very tyrannical action taken by the Communication Authority and Ruto's government.
And Article 35, and the Communications Authority is quoting Articles 33 and 34, and we must remind them that those articles are very clear that the freedom of the press is guaranteed. It cannot therefore be taken arbitrarily under whatever circumstances without a proper consultation on particularly the issue of content. So, as my brother said, we hope the courts are going to have to exercise their minds on this and issue some deterrent measures against William Ruto's administration. We have also received the notice that the Safaricom itself has even given some notice to Safaricom users that they may want to interfere with the internet connectivity. So again, we are very much aware, we remain alert, and fortunately they do not even know we have satellite links and people. So, but of course, the Safaricom does an important job, and this is why we have always suspected they are part of the state capture. If they can be prevailed upon to interfere with undersea cables and make it look like there's some outage under the sea, we will not accept this.
Right, it is exactly 20 minutes past the top of the hour. That's right, to take a short breather here on EBN Prime Edition. We'll be back in just a bit. Don't go too far. Rights organizations turned out large numbers. Event which began peacefully later descended into chaos, prompting fears and precautionary business closures in the city's central business district. As early as 6 a.m., protesters gathered at the ACK Cathedral Church for prayer service. By 8 a.m., they embarked on a peaceful procession that culminated at Uhuru Gardens, where they lit candles in remembrance of the fallen, and wooden chants of justice and solidarity filled the air as the group made its way through key city areas including Membe Tayari, Sabasaba, Buxton, Bondeni, and Central Business District. Tensions escalated when the demonstrators reached Fontenella roundabout and insisted on delivering a petition to the county commissioner's office located on the State House Road. While negotiations ensued, a separate group of looters attempted to take advantage of the moment. Heading towards Moi Avenue, however, business owners responded swiftly by shutting down their premises, denying the looters an opportunity.
Kisa na maana sikuja hapa ni kuweza kuomboleza wale vijana waliotoka maandamano mwaka jana ili kusinikiza serikali angushe mswada wa 2023 finance bill, lakini serikali ikatumia nguvu kupita kiasi, wameweza kuumiza watu na watu zaidi ya 66 wamekufa. Wale walioumia ni maelfu ya watu na mali zetu ziliharibika ni nyingi. Sasa leo tumekuja kuambia serikali tunataka haki kwa wale walikufa, wale waliumia na ile mali iliharibika. Kale maaskari ambao walifanya shughuli ile lazima wakamatwe na wapelekwe mahakamani, hatua ichukuliwe. Vile vile pia tunauliza serikali, tunataka ridhaa kwa wale wameumia na wale wamekufa, kwa sababu tunajua ni jukumu la serikali kuleta amani na kupeana security. Mwisho nataka kusema hivi, yale tulitoka kupigania bado hayajafanyika. Hali ya uchumi bado iko juu, elimu iko bei yake iko juu, hali ya afya bado haijaweza kutimizika. Kwa hivyo tunaambia serikali ichukue jukumu lake, waliapishwa ili kupatia maisha mazuri wa Kenya. Asante.
Na vijana wetu wa Mombasa wako na amani, Gen Z wako na amani, wako na adabu, hawana fujo na mtu yote. Wao wanauawa bure, wanauliwa bure, na hapa Mombasa waliokufa walikuwa ni watu 3. Walioumia ni zaidi ya watu 600 na mpaka wa leo hatujaona hata kuambiwa pole na serikali. Kwa hivyo sisi tuko ngangari na tumesema kila mwaka tutakuwa tukijitokeza kimasumasu kuomboleza na kukumbuka wenzetu waliokufa.
And I'm saying one thing. We must end extrajudicial killings. We must end the killing of our young people. We must end the killing of the Gen Zs. We must stop police brutality. We must govern the country through the rule of law. We must practice constitutionalism. What we are saying, we must compensate those who we lost. And the targeting of our young people and killing them simply because of expressing themselves and exercising their democratic right is not accepted, must be stopped, and we say enough is enough. Enough is enough. This must stop, and if it doesn't stop, we must stop it as the people.
Dhulma hizi za watoto kupotezwa, watoto kuuawa, watoto kushikwa ovyo ovyo ikome kuanzia leo. Sheria ifuatwe na katiba ifuatwe. Sisi ndio tulipigania haki. Sisi ndio tumepigania haki za kila mtu. Kwa nini polisi waue watoto? Kwa nini polisi wapoteze watoto? So tunasema sheria ifuatwe, iwapo watashikwa pelekwe mahakamani, lakini sio kuuawa na kupotezwa. Ni haki yao kujieleza, ni haki yao kusema shida iko wapi. So tuheshimu sheria na tufuate sheria.
Right, moving on, hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Knchr County on Wednesday in a solemn march to commemorate the lives of young people allegedly killed by police during the June 2024 anti-government demonstrations. The peaceful protest was marked by chants, placards, and emotional tributes to those who lost their lives. The demonstrators called for an immediate end to police brutality, urging law enforcement agencies to uphold human rights and act within the boundaries of the law. Protesters were seen carrying placards bearing the names and photos of the deceased, demanding accountability and justice. Calls for justice echoed through the streets as the group urged the government to investigate the killings and take decisive action to support the families affected. Many accused authorities of failing to respond adequately to previous appeals for justice.
Knchr na nimekuja leo in solidarity to our brothers. Any fallen soldiers wenye wamededi na wamekufa bila risasi. Wamekufa na bila tear gas. Wasa wamekuja tu kudefend tu nchi yetu, kuja kudefend nchi yetu ikuwe nchi ya haki. And let me tell you today, we are not singing because we are not in the street because we are just loitering. We are here to stand in solidarity with our brothers who we lost them and sisters, and we lost them because of standing for our country. And let me tell you today, Sisi, we are not here because we want to fight with the uniformed men. We are here because we want to fight for our brothers who died, yet they were not armed. They are dead, and we have not seen justice. We have not seen it. And let me speak. Let me speak to our government and to the police. Let me tell this to the police today. Hatutaki tena muende mpige instrumental kwa national anthem. We want them to know the lyrics of the national anthem. And this is a question. This is a question today I want to ask our police service. When will justice be our shield and defender? When will we live in unity, peace and liberty? Unity to stay together and build our country towards the right place. So, sisi leo.
Right, moving on, former Chief Justice of Kenya, David Maraga, has publicly joined the Gen Z protest taking place today in Nairobi, condemning in strong terms the police brutality against demonstrators, many of whom were young people. Maraga, who served as Chief Justice from October 2016 until January of 2021, has remained a vocal advocate for human rights and justice even after his retirement. In recent months, Maraga has continued his involvement in regional political and human rights issues, including attending the trial of Tanzanian opposition politician Tundu Lissu in Dar es Salaam. Demonstrating his ongoing commitment to public service and political engagement, Maraga officially announced in April this year his intention to run for presidency in the 2027 general elections.
Violence. Yeah, so it is extremely unfortunate that the police cannot see that. The police cannot see that. Instead, they are just dispersing people. So now it is clear that the problems are actually the police, not the demonstrators. Not the demonstrators. Because I was with this. I mean, what violence would you expect this mama to be there? One of them has been dispersed. I don't know where she is. It's very unfortunate that this can happen in our country. So, respect for picketing is thrown out of the window. What this is saying is that you have no right to say no. You have no right to say I disagree. And that's what we are saying. The government should be there. It should be ready to be criticized. And people, reasonable Kenyans, will see where there is unreasonable criticism, and they will themselves voice. But when you do this, in fact, you even now lose the sympathy of the Kenyans who would otherwise have been on your side. Yesterday was that the parents would be talked to. The parents would be accommodated. And they said the peaceful demonstrations should go on. Everybody said that. It is one hand giving and the other one taking away. So that is the kind of sad situation we find ourselves in.
All right, moving on now, the head of state, that is President William Ruto, has called for calm and restraint among protesters as national demonstrations continue to mark 1 year since the 2024 finance bill protest, which resulted in the loss of over 60 lives. Speaking at the funeral of Mzee Mungaro Sr., father of Kilifi Governor Gideon Mungaro, the president emphasized that the ongoing protest should not escalate into violence or cause damage to business. President Ruto underscored the importance of maintaining peace even amidst differing opinions on the country's future. He stressed that ideological differences should not be a source of division, but rather every Kenyan should stand united in building a strong nation and cohesive nation.
And therefore I want to ask fellow citizens, we may be of different opinions, we may have different strategies, but we must have a nation first. And secondly, we must be united as a nation so that we can build this nation together. And we must concentrate on the transformation of Kenya. Transform our agriculture for food security. Transform our housing program to create jobs. Transform our universal health coverage to create opportunities for every Kenyan to be treated in a fair and dignified manner, and to move this country forward together. On that, I am all in, and I will make sure that we transform our nation. Na wauliza, hata wale wako na maoni tofauti, hata wakati wa maandamano, pia tuhakikishe ya kwamba maandamano yale yasiwe ya fujo, yasiwe ya kuharibu mali, yasiwe ya kuharibu amani katika taifa letu la Kenya, kwa sababu hatuna taifa lingine ambalo tutahamia mambo yakiharibika hapa. Sisi taifa letu la Kenya ndio hili, na ni nafasi yetu na ni wajibu wetu kuhakikisha ya kwamba tunalinda amani ya taifa letu la Kenya, na yale yote tunayafanya yawe chini ya sheria, na tuhakikishe ya kwamba hatuharibu amani ya taifa letu la Kenya na hatupotezi nafasi ya sisi wote kuchangia katika kupeleka taifa letu la Kenya mbele.
All right, moving on, Cabinet Secretary for Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs, CS Salim Mvurya, has issued a stern warning to young people across the country, urging them not to fall prey to political manipulation and incitement to violence. Speaking during the funeral service of the late Mzee Gideon Mbaya, Mvurya cautioned the youth against being used by self-serving politicians to stir unrest and destabilize communities for personal or political gain. Mvurya stressed the importance of peace and unity as critical pillars of national development, especially during politically charged moments. He encouraged the youth to focus on building their futures through education, innovation, and active participation in nation building rather than being drawn in confrontational or violent activities.
Excellency, you have a clear vision for the youth of this country. Na uko na strategic interventions, labor mobility, mambo ya housing for jobs, and many others. Tunawaomba vijana wa fit their vision and realize their dreams within the spectrum of those interventions that President is making. Tunajua kwamba katika msimu huu kuna watu ambao wanatumia vijana kuleta fujo. Mimi nataka kusema hivi, wakati kijana unakuwa hired ufanye violence, ujue hiyo dream ambayo unachangia sio yako, ni ya yule mwanasiasa ambaye yeye tayari amefika katika kikomo chake cha maisha. Wewe ndio unaanza sasa. And therefore the youth of this country should not be duped into violence, because the politicians who are inciting them to violence have already arrived at their destination. They have already realized their potential. And your potential and career is different from the person who is inciting.
All right, it is exactly 38 minutes past the top of the hour. And that will wrap up our bulletin here on EBN Prime Edition. But before we do that, I want to sample some of your feedback here on our socials. I want to shout out Emmanuel Ndeiti, says he is watching. Ingwewa Macharia says he is watching. Belem, Mary Natasha, Mr. Spicy, and Jerry, and Mr. Spicy as well, Combo M, Mika, Carol, Shania, and of course many, but to name a few. Tunasema asante sana for keeping us company here on the program. My name is Macharia, signing off. Do yourself a lovely night, and of course continue being safe even as you continue with your businesses tomorrow. Be safe and may God guide you. My name is Macharia, signing off. Do yourself a good night, and as always, let's do this again when God says we do.